Hey guys, this again spars off from a video yesterday and one I made yesterday. Backup comms. CB comeback. Is there going to be a CB comeback? Maybe, maybe not. A commenter I saw on a video I watched yesterday said, we still get CB radio from my husband's trucker days. Great. There's nothing wrong with a CB radio. Absolutely nothing wrong. I don't know how long ago her husband's trucker days were. Was it 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago? Couldn't tell you. So that comment there alone is what's prompting this video. Things get old. We get old, right? Equipment gets old too. Particularly radios get old. It may not work anymore, or may not work properly anymore. Coax cable gets old also. It can also get compromised, like corrosion from moisture. It can also just get old and not work anymore. That's as simple as that. I'll explain that in a minute from real life experience. So the purpose of this video is to check stuff, make sure it works. So in this lady's instance, maybe, husband's trucker days were 25 years ago and he kept his old CB stuff. Great. Maybe that coax is no good anymore. So maybe, in 3 years from now when they go to use it, or 6 months, they hook it up and it's not working and they can't figure out why. Maybe it's just bad coax because the coax is so old, it's attenuating the signal. It could be something as simple as that. So that's where we're going to go with this one. This is RG58U coax. It's a pretty common thing. It's used a lot in mobile applications because it's small and very, very flexible, very forgiving. Many years ago, when I was doing commercial stuff, I went to check a VHF. Yeah, it's different than CB, but still coax is coax here. And their complaint was they couldn't talk to anybody, couldn't hear anybody. Their radio just wasn't working. So went down to troubleshoot the problem, checked everything out, put a bird meter in the system. Yep, radio's putting out power. Everything seems to be looking all right. SWR was all right. Okay, yeah. Well, the coax just seemed a little funky, just seemed kind of dry. Notice this, it's nice and flexible, right? Real soft. That coax seemed dry and hard. It checked out all right per the meter. Well, all right. Changed out the antenna mount, which goes from the connector that goes on your radio right up through. It was a NMO roof mount in the vehicle. Changed it all out. Made sure the antenna was good. Everything metered out good. Hooked the radio up. Hey, everything started working great now. What it was even though it was metering out okay, the coax had just aged out. It was just so old, it was attenuating the signal. Attenuating means it was suppressing the signal. Your signal was just getting lost in the coax. It was just dissipating, gone. It happens. So if you have old stuff, you might want to think about upgrading it. Now, coax should not go bad within a few years. Now, if it's been sitting around 20 years, something like that, in the attic, out in the garage, and you're thinking, someday I might hook that back up if I really need to use it, you might just want to get rid of it and replace it. Get something new. For that very reason. Because you might go to hook it up and it's not going to work. And that's the reason why. It's just so old, it's going to suppress your signal. There's nothing wrong with old gear. Absolutely nothing wrong. I mean, I'm running an old ham rig that's 1994. I got some other stuff pushing back further than that, and it works great. Nothing wrong with it, as long as it's working right. So if you might have an old CB radio laying around, is it still working right? Where did it come from? Did it get modified? Did you pick it up at a yard sale? Something grandpa might have had. We're people my age, mid-40s, might have something that grandma and grandpa might have had back in the 70s and 80s, got passed down. You don't know what's happened to that radio. Just because it says channel 22 doesn't mean it's actually transmitting on channel 22 maybe. Are there extra switches on it? Buttons that just seem out of place. Maybe that's doing something that's not supposed to be doing, right? So you think you're trying to call somebody on channel 22, 23, 25, and you're actually not on that right channel, and you're on something else, and it's doing what it's not supposed to do, and you don't know it. So maybe get that radio checked out and make sure it is doing what it's supposed to do. That it's putting out the right amount of power, it's putting out a nice clean signal, it's receiving correctly. Receiving's very important. So you want to depend on this for your backup comms, right? You want to make sure it's working right. If you've got some old stuff laying around, or maybe family members that don't want something and you're going to dig it out of their attic or their garage or whatever, go get it now. Now's the time to go get it and figure it out and get it working. Make sure it does work. Don't wait till you need it to find out it doesn't work. Connectors. This is real life. I have seen this on more than a few occasions. People will get coax and they'll try to put on their own connectors and not know what they're doing. So this is a solder on connector, right? These are getting old. They're starting to get a little bit of corrosion to them. Anyway, so what they'll do is they'll strip off the center conductor. They'll strip back the braid. They'll stick the center conductor out through this center pin, which is hollow, and they'll wrap the center conductor around the center pin, okay? And then they'll stick it in the radio connector. It's not soldered, but that's how they do it. They'll stick it in there, and then they pull the collar up, screw it all together, and call it good. So the center conductor for the coax is not soldered to the connector. The shield, the ground of the coax, is not soldered to the chassis of the connector. You can see here and there it is soldered. So you have the shield in there, especially in a mobile application. It'll start doing this and move and move. Well, what happens when things have electrical current through them and they move? Yeah, well, number one, you got bad shielding. Number two, you're gonna start getting crackle, crackle, crackle. I've seen this. So if you just need to cheat and buy coax from a supplier that already has the connectors on it, that is perfectly fine. It's better to do that than to put connectors on and do it wrong and have them not work. Depending on your distance that you're going to be running between your radio and your antenna in your application is going to depend on what type of coax you want to get. Odds are, because you're down on 27 megahertz, it's going to be a lot less lossy through this little RG58. I mean, if you get to run 100 feet of this stuff on CB, you're not going to lose a lot of signal. However, a better option would be something like this. This is LMR 400. I'll hold them up side by side for you here real quick so you can get a little bit of a size comparison difference. There you go. LMR 400 is not that expensive really, has good shielding. It's about the same physical size as RG8 and RG213. You can run RG8 if you want, you can run RG213 if you want. I run LMR 400 because I run it on a lot higher frequencies than CB, and I just run LMR 400 on everything. That's just how I do it. So, whatever you want to do. So, especially on CB, where you're running lower power and you're going to be trying to receive weaker signals, I would suggest running a coax with a better shield where you're going to lose less signal. Yes, you could get away with this. It'll work. But this would be better. And this does not cost that much more, quite honestly. Something else, we'll see it all the time. You're going to see it on vehicles. You're going to see it on base stations. You're going to see it in marine environments, even on salt water. This is not good. You have a connector. This is a standard 3/24 type connector. You'll see it on big rigs all the time, dump trucks, so on and so forth. So you've got a threaded connector here, right? This just plugs in and screws on. So this is what people do. And They call it a day, good enough. No, it's not. You're going to get water and you're going to get moisture in this connector, and you're going to start getting corrosion. And that corrosion is going to get into your coax. You might not even know it. So you could have a bad piece of coax cable. It could be brand new. It could be 2 weeks old, 3 weeks old. Well, you're not going to know it unless you cut the coax open and you start seeing green in there. That is going to affect your transmission. That's going to affect your reception. Eventually, you're going to start seeing it on an SWR meter. Well, you want your radio to be working mint, top notch, right? So when you put this together, you need to seal it and seal it properly the first time. Do it right. We'll get into that in a little bit. So you don't know if something laying around in a garage could be compromised. It could have moisture in it. And it could be green, it could be corroded inside from laying around. It could have been hooked up like that for a year, 2 years, got compromised, and then somebody decided, well, I'm not going to use this anymore. They disconnect it, coil it up, throw it in the back of the shop, the garage. You don't know, then you think, oh, that's good, I'll use that. And you've really got a piece of junk sitting there. You don't know. So find this stuff out now, okay? This is the same type of mount on the back bumper of my truck. Looks kind of weird, doesn't it? But it is sealed with butyl rubber. That's why it kind of looks like a goose egg. And then covered in electrical tape. Doing a proper seal will keep moisture, like on that back bumper. Even if it was up on the side rail of the bed, you're going to get moisture and crap in there. Down on the bumper, it's going to be worse. Well, having it sealed correctly is going to keep moisture and crap out of that connector and out of the coax. If I left it like that on my back bumper, instead of having the jack of this coax all sealed all the way around this connector and sealed all the way up to here, and having that one continuous seal, I would have water, I would have corrosion down in that connector, seeping down into that coax, and that coax would become junk and my radio would not work correctly. Sealing, you can get this stuff at Home Depot. You can use Scotch 2228 moisture sealing tape, and then top it off with Super 88 electrical tape. Get the good stuff, don't get the cheap junk. You need to make sure you have a proper antenna. This looks like a CB antenna. I've already done a video about this, but I'm gonna reiterate just specifically for this one. Looks like a CB antenna. Sure does. So I'm gonna stick it on the hood of my truck. There it is, right? This is a PL259 connector, which is standard on a CB radio. It would screw right on. This is not a CB radio. This is not a radio. This is an antenna analyzer. So I can get on a CB frequency, which I'm going to go to channel 19. And we're going to find out if that's actually a CB antenna and will work, just because it looks like it and it will screw onto a CB. This little gadget here is simulating the CB radio, all right? And is going to show the standing wave ratio, which is the comparison of your power you're pushing to the antenna as to what's getting bounced back down the line into your radio. Ideally, you want to be at 1.5 to 1 or under. 1.1 to 1 is the best, or if you can get 1.0, which I have on my base, I'll show you, is ideal. So I'm going to get on, seems a little touchy. Oh, I'm on it. 27.185. That is channel 19. All right. There it is. 27.185. 186. Close enough. Megahertz. Where's the SWR here? All right. That green line right there, SWR, it should be showing me something. Nothing. Needle's all wonky. Notice the SWR meter needle is way up in the red. Red's dead. Ain't good. Well, it looks like a CB antenna. This should be working. If you hook that up to your CB, if I run that around on my CB in the truck right now and start trying to talk to people, it ain't gonna work. That's actually a VHF 2-meter ham radio antenna. So here we are at about halfway in the 2-meter ham radio band. Now look at our needles. We have 50 ohm impedance. SWR is bottomed out. Look in our SWR block here, we have a 1.1 to match. That's what this antenna is. It's not a CB antenna just because it looks like it, and it's the same connector and will screw on. Make sure you have the proper antenna, and it also needs to be tuned correctly. Okay, I'm going to key up a dead carrier right on the middle of the band here in the truck, see what we got for an SWR. 1.0. 1.2. Bottom of the band. 1.0. That antenna right there is the CB antenna. Those are the SWR readings you just saw. SWR is important, your standing wave ratio. So as I said a few minutes ago, you ideally want to be at 1.5 or under. What was my highest? 1.2? I mean, the highest SWR I got is well under 1.5. So across the entire CB band there, channel 1 through 40, I know that the antenna on my truck is performing well. I know that I do not have excessive SWR, not even close. So I know that I am pushing just about every bit of that 4 watts of power on AM and 12 watts of power on sideband. I'm running legal limit, nothing funky here, no kickers. I know it's all getting out of that antenna. And as far as the receiving goes, I know the antenna is performing on receive. I know there's nothing screwy going on with my antenna system. So that radio has a SWR bridge built in. Some radios don't. You would need to have a separate one that you would just have a little jumper that goes between the radio to the SWR meter, then the meter to your transmission line to the antenna. If the SWR is too high and you're transmitting, you're just not going to get power out of your antenna. You're going to be losing it. It's going to be bouncing back into your radio, and if you're running too much power, you're going to start smoking things. And if your antenna is not tuned, if you think of like a musical instrument, sour notes, flat notes, it just sounds like crap. If you kind of relate that in your head to an antenna not being tuned, not sounding right, you're going to be rejecting. It's going to be sounding like crap. Music is not the same as RF, but if you kind of relate, tuning sounds nice, right? If it's tuned, it sounds nice. If it's not tuned, it sounds like crap. Think of that in the RF world. Tuning is good. A nice tune, radio works good. This is my CB base antenna. We're going to check this one over in the house, just because. See what we got. 1.0. That is good. That's very good. Let's hit the upper end of the band. 1.0. Hit the mid just because. 1.0. I know that antenna I just showed you outside, channel 1, all the way through the band, channel 40, the SWR is 1.0. You cannot get it any better than that. That is absolutely freaking perfect. So I'm not having power bouncing back down the line. It's doing exactly what it's supposed to do. Hope I encourage you a little bit. If you've got some old stuff, get it dug out. Make sure it works. Make sure it's working right. Or if you want to get some new stuff, you know, these are only, I guess, 3 years old, 4 years old, something like that. It's not that expensive. Make sure you got good coax, good connectors. Make sure they're sealed up good. That antenna outside, that's all sealed up. Everything outside is sealed up. Make sure you have the proper antennas and make sure they're tuned correctly, and you'll have a rig that works. And that's what I want for you. I don't want to sell you anything. It's like I'm not telling you go buy this, go buy that, or you're gonna die. I ain't that type of guy. I just want you to get set up, and if you got questions, I'll try and help you out, absolutely. I want something to work for you when you need it, and not have you go, crap, this ain't working, and you know, it's because of bad coax, or the radio's junk because a cap popped in it, you know, 20 years ago, and that's why it gets thrown on the shelf or something, a capacitor, or microphone's bad. You know, get the stuff out, make sure it's still working, because if you want to use it and you need it, you want it to work, right? Catch you later.